Nikwita Wajiro, nigetha atu introduce our facilitator, nigetha aririe aciari hamwe na yuthi aria meguka.
Good morning. Are you well?
Yes.
On behalf of Christian Education, asanteni sana kwa kuja during service. Wacha niseme on behalf of development, asanteni sana for contributions. Now, we know that most of us are about to go back to school for our children, those in primary, those in high school, and some in campus, I think are still from an exam season, so either they're doing exams and are about to go back. Now we have upbringing of children, so as education we start and we thought it is very important where are we as the church, where are we as the family. We thought about how are we relating with our children. When you are growing up, people sharing dads and moms phone. But now in the homesteads we have you know, modern demands, so we found it wise to make the house of PCEA UNDIRI. So allow me to introduce our expert for today. Nyaru Kaganga, University of Nairobi. He's a lecturer there. He's a consultant psychologist. We definitely have to be a Christian. He's a full member of he's a member of a church in Baraka, a full member there. So we want to ensure that what we do is godly and is aligned. His name is Dr. Steve Molusi. They will encourage listen, and because it is meant to be highly interactive, and even later when the children come, when we have sat as a family, it will be good to listen and to learn. Asanteni sana, Dr. Steve, karibu.
Good morning. Good morning, parents. Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Bwana asifiwe. Yes, my name is Steve Molusi. I'm a psychologist, and I'm very happy to be here. I usually give this disclaimer that wanasemanga ninakaa kama I should be also one of your sons, but I'm not. I am a parent. Msichana wangu wa kwanza aligraduate 2014 to class 1. Sasa hii hapo form 4. So mimi pia ni pale. Niko na wasichana wakubwa na kijana mmoja. Amen. And so it's really nice to be here. And when the team called and I was asked to speak today, one of the things that came in mind was as recent as late 90s coming into 2000. Kwa wale wanakumbuka, my brother-in-law alikuwa ndiye mtu wa kwanza kuweka simu ya hii connection ya simu za nyumbani kwa nyumba, and my sister was working there, and so my sister goes home akapata my brother-in-law akiongea kwa simu mahali kwa kona kwa nyumba yake, and my sister ran kwa sababu alisema mzee anaongea peke yake, kwa sababu tunaona simu hizi za line hizi. But today as we speak, sisi wote hapa we have something calling a smartphone, isn't it? We can video call, tunaweza fanya mambo mengi, lakini kwa hiyo a lot of things have changed since the late 90s. And as we speak today, I am just from speaking with your children a few minutes ago, and one of them was bold enough, not one of them, some of them were bold enough to tell me that, hey, what to trust tuna gadgets. But then the conversation we had was the fact that it's not a question of trusting them with the gadgets, it's a question of what are the gadgets doing to them, not necessarily what they can use the gadgets to do. That is number one. Number two, ile kitu pia tumekuwa to discuss ni kwamba gadgets are not necessarily teaching them bad things, because that is what most of the people will be talking about. That gadgets are teaching our children vitu zenye hawafai kuwa wanalearn. Hapana. My dear brothers and sisters, these gadgets, the issue with the gadgets is not what it is helping the children to learn. It is what it is preventing the children from learning. Kwamba ile time wangekuwa nayo kufanya vitu zingine inatumika kwenye mtandao, inatumika kwenye TV, inatumika kwenye gadgets na vitu zingine kama hivyo. Kwa hivyo unapata mtu amekuwa mkubwa, lakini kuna basic things hawezi kufanyia. Kwa nyumba yangu niko na wawili, niko na nini zote mbili, I have the 844 and I also have the CBC. And the difference is very clear. And because I don't want to get into the details of those differences, the thing that I've seen with those differences is only one, and that is the conversation I want us to have today. That if a family puts a system, then that system is actually able to change how these people relate, how they work, and how they do things. Because wale wenye experience watu wa CBC na wale wa 844, the difference is very clear, not because of anything else, it's because there is a system yenye imewekwa ambayo inawafanya wafanye vitu vitofauti. And this conversation ya leo, nataka tuongelee mambo matatu tu, and then I will be sitting down, and then when they come, we can have that conversation. Na nitaomba nikiendelea kuongea, kwa sababu najua kuna watu wako na experience nyingi, kuna watu ambao wamekuwa wakifanya kazi, wamelea wajukuu na watoto. Hizo maswali tulete leo, wakikuja tuweze kuhave a conversation. But the first thing, I will make 3 statements. Namtanuia dhati kikuyu ya kwati kieka muno wanguneko tata. Wakituwe na kitongo ni sawa. Kituwe na kitongo ni sawa. Thank you, Mona. So, 3 things. The first thing I will say is this. That as people, we should not be caught up in preparing a future for our children. The thing we should be doing is preparing our children for the future. And that is a very clear distinction between the CBC also and the 844, and I'm not trying to compare these two. That as parents, sometimes tunashikwa na wasiwasi, wacha niweze kwa sababu mimi pia ni parent, call it parental anxiety, kwamba watafanya nini? Will they be able to manage? Will they be able to do this? I am investing for them. I am working very hard to invest and do this for them. The best investment you can make in a child is in the child, so that in your absence, the child can survive. Kwa sababu kuna kitu tumekuwa tukifanya kama wazazi wachanga kama mimi, kwamba there is a story ya farmer alienda kwa shamba yake, and then this farmer finds a cocoon. Ile cocoon yenye inatoka butterfly, inapanga cocoon. So the butterfly has to squeeze itself, lazima ijitoe kwenye hiyo cocoon. Akapata hii butterfly struggle kutoka kwa cocoon. And the farmer, because he felt like he was a very good man, akachukua kisu yake akakata vizuri, ndio butterfly itoke bila kustruggle. Kitu hakujua ni kwamba it was this struggle that helps the butterfly get rid of some fluid inatoka kwa feathers liweze kufly. And sometimes I think as parents, we either overhelp on the one side or overcompensate on the other side because of the things we did not have or the things we had, and we hope our children don't miss out on them. And this is the conversation I want us to have. That one, that we are building them for the future, not a future for them. It is very easy to give a child a house as beautiful as this church, and 3 years on the line are equal. But it's possible to give a child, having built them inwardly, that in 3 years they have a house like this on their own. And those are 2 different aspects of it. I have been to burials of people, and the only thing the child is telling you, kuna kaploti ya mzee tunauza. Because kuna drug anataka kupata na hana. But there are times I've gone to burials and mzee is being buried na hana kitu, but mzee did something good in the minds and hearts of their children. Brought them up in the ways of the Lord, brought them up thinking about other people, not just themselves, and brought them up being able to apply themselves to something. Hata kama ni kulima, na wanalima vizuri. And therefore, the conversation I want us to have here is that one of building them and making them fit for the future, not building a future for them. If you build a future for them, what are they going to be doing in the future? Thank you, Mr. Wang. So, in Africa, man, you look at that and realize, yes, this is it. That's number one. So, number one is we need to build them for the future. We need to build them to be able to stand on their own. The success of a parent is the extent to which a child is able to function on their own. And remember, as Christians and as parents, we have been given the greatest mandate of all, raising the next generation. Let us not overhelp, let us not overcompensate. The second one is something called environment. Tulikuwa tunacheka na watoto wa pale teens, pale tukisema, they love coconuts. Then I asked them, kama unapenda coconuts, mbona kwewe mtapanda coconuts? And then they kept quiet. But the answer was very simple. The environment here does not favor coconut. Kama unapanda huko nazi, atupandi sinyo? Because the environment does not favor them. And therefore, as parents, we have to understand something about the environment. Because kuna environment ingine nyumbani, it cannot build the kind of child you want. We usually say this. It's one thing to take someone to the hospital, adungwe sindano ama atibiwe apone malaria, but if they come back to the same environment with the same mosquitoes, you will keep taking them to the hospital. Therefore, as parents, the best way we can address this is understanding that ile environment ambao watoto wako ya nyumbani na yuko kanisani, is it making them resistant to, or is it making them well? Is it making them healthy? Is it making them to stand even when temptations come? And the last one, I say this, msikuwe na wasiwasi. These kids will make it. Parental anxiety is real. We want to do everything that is within our power to make sure that they get what they need to get. They will make it. Look at yourself. You made it, right? So you don't manage now, so let us not be caught up with doing and overdoing things in a way that we are not helping them build the muscle to become who they are supposed to become. Because sometimes we do that. Sometimes we give them. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine. We were in college together, and he was telling me the other day he refused to pay his child's school fees. The other day, school fees. I'm not saying you do that, but I'm simply saying that there is no world, even God does not give us everything we want every time we ask for it. Mungu akigani, even you as a parent need to get to a point where I understand that these children need to understand both sides of the coin. They need to understand abundance, they need to understand lack. They need to be able to deal with hunger, and they need to be able to deal with being full, and they need to be able to deal with the balancing of those things becomes important. And therefore, as parents, we understand that at the end of the day, when our work on this side of the universe is done, and we rest, what kind of children are we living for the world? Not what kind of world are we living for the children. And that, again, difference is very important. Kwa sababu tunaweza kuachia ulimwengu watoto wenye watafanya ulimwengu uwe mzuri, alafu tuwaachie ulimwengu in terms of what we have built as parents, because I've seen their parents ya nyinyi ama watu wamejipanga vizuri. Lakini ulimwengu wakati utapumzika, na wakati utapumzika nitawaachia ulimwengu watoto wa aina gani? Na hiyo inakuwa important. Hivyo inafika mahali we think about three things, alafu itakuwa nimeketi. Kitu cha kwanza, we need to understand that we have been given the mandate to be only one thing and one thing only. To be architects. To be architects. Kukuwa wajenzi ama wachoraji, wale kuchora na kujenga manyumba. That these kids, when they are given to us by God, mwanasaikolojia alisema, they come to us as tabula rasa. Tabula rasa inamaanisha kwamba wanakuja kwetu kama blank slate, yani hawana kitu imechora. Ni kama vile unaenda kununua computer, haina programs. And much as we keep saying a computer can do anything, my phone can do, a computer can only do that which it has been programmed to do. And therefore, a child is only going to live as well as they have been programmed to do. And the first programmer is home. The first programmer is the family. The first programmer is you, the parents. And how you program is not even sometimes what you tell them, it is what they see you do. Hivyo kwamba, mwingine akasema, kwamba children have not been good at listening to what we tell them, but they have never failed to imitate what we do. Watu hawajakuwa wazuri sana kutusikia kutusikiza wakati tunawaambia, lakini hawajafail kutukopi wakati tunafanya kitu. And therefore, the environment of the home becomes a place where we are architecturing, rather, we are building their way of doing things so that when they meet people out there, they treat you exactly the way you treat people. Kama mnaongelea watu wengine vibaya nyumbani, they will also start to look bad about their peers. Kama pale nyumbani wanaona mnakuwa wakarimu and you respect each other, they will also start respecting other people. So it's not a question of what we tell them to do or not to do. It's a question of what are we doing as parents ili tuweze kukuza watoto ambao wanaweza. Naomba mtu mmoja anisomee Psalms 78 verse 4 to 7. Psalms 78 verse 4 to 7. Na wale tunaweza ongea Kiingereza, naomba tuseme hivi. Someone gets it. Psalms 78 verse 4 to 7. Wale wanaweza ongea Kiingereza, naomba mrudie nyuma yangu. We will tell the next generation. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. And that is programming. And much as that verse, once we get it, says about other things, it's simply a question of that our first mandate as Christians is we have to build the next generation. We have to tell them. We have to demonstrate. And of course, they say actions speak louder than words. And therefore, our responsibility is not just to raise successful children, but to faithfully prepare the next generation. Because that becomes something else. You see, when my father raised me, he might have been raising me just as his boy. But now I have a responsibility at my place of work. I have a responsibility to my children and my wife. I have a responsibility here when I'm invited to come and speak. He did not just raise a boy. He did not just raise one man. He raised someone who's also going to raise someone. And then that someone raises someone. And that becomes a responsibility. So, huyo msichana wako ambao uko na yeye, au kijana wako ambao uko na yeye, sio wako peke yako. It's a generation to come. He's going to become someone who becomes someone who we have to depend on. 78 verse 4 to 7. Start from verse 4, please. And therefore, that responsibility becomes important because when we understand that we are the inner architecture, we are the ones responsible for their inner architecture, then we realize that some of the things that they may feel they need are not necessarily the things they need. So, inasema we will not hide them from their children. And that is the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. Showing the generation to come the presence of the Lord and His strength and His wonderful works that He has done. Verse 5. For He has established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which He has commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of the Lord, but keep His commandments. And therefore, the importance of that statement is the fact that we are responsible for our generation, not just for our children. And so as you raise your boy, think about the kind of man he's going to become and the kind of things this man can do to a country like Kenya, to a continent like Africa, to the world, and then understand that we're not just raising your boy. And therefore the responsibility raises. And so we look at integrity, resilience, faith, hope, and wisdom. Because the Bible says in Proverbs that train up a child in the way he should go, and when they grow up, they will not depart from it. And therefore, while else this talks about godly things, it also talks about how do they show up at work? How do they show up in school? How do they show up in school in a way that they can prevent, for example, a fire from happening? When in those times, where we are just walking from a town that had a lot of fires and a lot of things, is it possible that your child will be the child that decides, because of the way I've been brought up, because of the kind of integrity that I've seen in my parents and that I have in myself, because of the kind of faith and wisdom I've seen in my father and my mother, is it possible that they can stand up and influence other children not to do something like that? Because then they will have saved other children, and you, because of you, what you have done, you will also have saved a generation. And therefore, my brothers and sisters, we have to understand that it is not the hardware part of the children. Because it's very tempting sometimes to go to the supermarket and buy them things. It's tempting to go to the country and bring them things. It is very tempting to go to Nike and bring them the most expensive shoes. But let me tell you, when was the last time you bought your child a book and demanded of them to read it? When was the last time you got a coach for your child and requested them to keep the coaching going? We are living in very awkward times, the times of social media, and sometimes then, those days of ours, there was trauma if you just come from home and things you have seen. Nowadays you can be traumatized from nowhere. You are sitting here, umechukua simu yako, umeenda Twitter, there was an accident, somebody is on the road. That is trend. And that is what, as we are grown ups, we can handle that. That is what our children are going through. They go to Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and the kind of things they interact with are not the kind of things you would have interacted with. Now, kama interact nazo, probably you also need to talk to someone. But then we are not doing that. And therefore, when we are raising this kind of conversation around raising the next generation, talks about a software issue, not a hardware issue. And therefore, if you are putting more money, and I dare say this, I usually tell my kids, if you have more shoes than books, those shoes are not taking you anywhere. Kama kuna viatu nyingi kuliko vitabu, hakuna mahali hizo viatu zitakupeleka. Because this is a hardware issue, not a software issue. It's a software issue, not a hardware issue. Kama wawezi soma kitabu amalize about being a good teenager, or about faithfulness, or about prayer, or about psychological well-being, that's a Nike ya 20,000 ni sawa, they will look good, but they will rather show up looking good, but not necessarily dressed good. It is better if you have to choose one of them. They will rather show up not dressed as good, but being good internally. And therefore, as parents, we have to look at where really are we investing in our children. Are we investing in the hardware side of it, preparing our future for them, or in the software part of it, preparing them for the future, so that their way of thinking, their way of feeling, and their way of behaving is somehow regulated. Because at the end of the day, at the university where we are, and now coming September, we are receiving first years. The kind of things we have been seeing lately are not very encouraging. I know there will be high school teachers here. They will also tell you the same, that it is not business as usual. Wakati wetu, ule mzee alikuwa mwanaume kabisa, alikuwa anafuta sigara. Siku hizi you say unafuta sigara high school, utachekelewa sana because nani anafuta sigara kuwa na bangi. And that is happening every day. It is no longer a secret. And therefore, kama wazazi, we have to put in a little more effort, more than probably our parents did, because you are competing with a lot of things. Initially, we were just competing with probably radio. Yenye ilikuwa inafunguliwa mzaya akikuja. Ama TV ya black and white yenye ilikuwa regulated because ni KBC. Nowadays, mtandaoni 3 seconds, you don't know where your child has gone. And you don't know what kind of links wanafungua. Hivyo inafika mahali, you have to really put a lot of effort. We have to put a lot of efforts in their way that we are building their resilience. We are building something that is possible. That was number one. Let us be architects of their minds. Let us be architects of the way they think. Let us listen to them when they speak, and then hear something that needs to be corrected, and correct it while they are still speaking, or while you still have them. And you know what that calls for? It calls for presence. Kuna story nimesikia juzi mbaya, na nitaishare kwa sababu ilinifanya nikasikia ni kama I also need to check. Kuna mtoto ameenda akauliza baba yake, especially at the fathers, akauliza baba yake, hey, how much is paid when you per day? Kuja anauliza mzazi, unalipa pesa ngapi sinyami? Unalipa pesa ngapi kwa siku? Mzazi akamwambia, hey, they pay this amount, maybe 5,000 kwa siku. Kijana akafanya hesabu, akauliza, oh, so they pay 5,000 kwa siku. So kijana akaenda. So the father later asks the son, kwa nini ulikuwa unauliza wanalipa ngapi kwa siku? Kijana akamwambia, niko na plan, nitaenda kuongea na marafiki zangu na mama, alipea 5,000, nikupe ukae na mimi siku moja. You get my point? Yaani kijana anataka kulipa mzae, wakae na yeye siku moja because he is always working. And that tells you something. It tells you that children may never tell you, but when you are home, kids are very happy. Of course, we cannot be home because there are bills to pay and there are many other things to do. But by all means, make sure that in the process of being an architect, you need to be so present in a way that even when you're away, they feel you, they hear you. You make a call in the middle of nowhere, you make a video call somewhere, talk to them, just be there. Because if you are not there, nature, they say, has not working. Something else will replace you. It's very likely it's not going to be a good father. It's likely to be something else. And therefore, that tangible presence that we are with them, then begins to teach them some things. How you treat people, how you speak to people. A friend of mine carries his son and daughter when he even goes to a business meeting so that he can even hear how he negotiates, how he can back tables in a negotiation in a good way, not in an emotional way. That way, then people begin to learn, this is what my dad does. In Germany, for example, it is a requirement most of the time that you take your child to work for 2 weeks. Even if they are just serving you tea, wapange file zako, wapanguze, let them see what you do. Wasionange tu pesa na wajui natoka wapi. And the office doesn't be the office. Hii office yako, whether ni sukuma tunauza, ama ni ofisi tunarun, ama ni accountants, whatever it is we are doing, let us make sure that we are with them. Let us be a source of, let them be a source of healing, hope, truth, and kindness. Because the Bible says that we are the salt of the earth. Let us make sure that before we become the salt of the earth, we are the salt also of the earth in our house, and then make them also the salt of the earth. And that is going to help us. I was saying the second one is that we need to be, number one, we need to be architects, and the second thing is we need to be influencers. Wale warika fulani hapa naona wanajua ma-influencer ni kina nani. Ma-influencer mtandaoni ni wase wenye wakisema kitu, people kind of tend to show up for it, they kind of tend to identify with it because wako na following na wako na vitu zingine. So the best way to be an influencer for your child is to make sure that kuna kitu umeona ndani yake and then tumia hiyo kitu to serve others. One of the best examples I had is a conversation I had with a parent, and the daughter was struggling. She was all over the place, could not concentrate. But then she realized the daughter really loved baking. Alikuwa anapenda sana kupika vitu, baking. And one time akamwambia hii baking yako utakosa utafanya. So he took the car, put the oven in the boot of the car, and they went to a children's home and they baked to the kids the whole day. Cupcakes. And that child today has known how to serve other people. They have known that much as I have this skill of baking, I can actually use this to create opportunities, to serve others, to be able to contribute to other people's joy. And that becomes important as parents. And therefore, we become influencers, we become people who are able to get to a place where we influence how the child is going to react. And the last one is we should be stewards. And a steward is simply someone who takes the responsibility, guides, and leads from the front so that they know what you are going to do. And I will request for that microphone now. And just ask a few questions. Naomba ile kipasa sauti kimoja kakangu pale. Naomba niulize swali tu moja kwa sababu muda umeenda sana. Sawa, utanishikia. Naomba niulize. So, as parents, much as we are saying we are number one, we are architects. So tunaamua vile watoto watafikiria, tunawafunza vile watafanya. Jambo la pili, tukasema we are influencers. So we show them, we in the front line show them what they should do, and then do it with them, and take them out there to be able to do that thing. And the last thing we say, we are stewards, that we have the responsibility to guide the sheep, that is the family, to that place. But then as parents, kuna vitu zingine watu tunapima zenye Mungu hapimi. Na nitasema kwa tena nastaki kusema example ndio usishike haraka. Ni nini unapima kwa mtoto wako ambao Mungu hapimi? Ni nini unaangalia mtoto wako and then you accord them acceptance ama no acceptance na Mungu yeye hapimi? Na nitauliza wakili hapo wa kwanza. And then you pass the microphone to someone else. Ni nini tunapima kama wazazi wa leo yenye Mungu hapimi? Even better.
But I think God's love is unconditional.
Yes.
So kuna mapenzi na kimo.
So we can primary. So when they do good, they are good. When they do bad, and then it's good to mention that kwa sababu kwa hiyo God is not always trying to catch us doing the right thing. God is also catching us doing the wrong. I mean, God is always catching us doing the wrong thing. He's also catching us doing the right thing. So hatufai kupima mapenzi wakati mtoto anaonyesha tabia nzuri kuliko wakati amebehave vibaya. Sawa sawa? So it should be unconditional. Nishakutana na mzazi akiwa amebeba bagi yake, amebeba chakula anaenda kusalimia mtoto wake kamili because bado ni mtoto wake. We pray it does not get there, but let's love them that way. You see the way God has loved you. Unajua zile mali umejikuta za zingine na bado Mungu anakupenda. Let us extend that to our children. Okay. Let me see. Let me ask my brother here in attire, kindly. Now that you have attire. My brother. Yes, this sir. Or anyone with attire is out of attire. Ni nini tunapima ambayo Mungu apimi? Yes, sir. Kama wazazi, ni nini tunaangalia watoto wetu na tunapima vile wanaendelea vizuri lakini Mungu apimi vitu kama hizo? Like sisi wao tunapimia the way we love them depending on how they have performed. I mean how they have performed in school, for example. Lakini kuna vitu tunapima hizo Mungu apimi.
Their knowledge.
Their knowledge. Mungu apimi knowledge. Which means that for example to fail, hiyo ni yako. God is not measuring that. There was another brother in a child here. No, tunapima child.
I can say love.
Love, yes.
Yeah.
And the brother at the corner, there were 3, yes.
Care.
Yes. Perfect. Let me give you examples. The first one is report cards. Every time a child shows up, I was even the other day we were having this discussion with my wife, because every time we went to pick my daughter from school, alikuwa anaanza kumuulizia ulipata ngapi. Yaani ameingia ni reporter, hatujamuona for 3 months or thereabout. And the first thing you ask them is, "Hey, ulikuwa na ngapi mathematics?" Like, hapana, we should not be doing that. A report card should not be a way of measuring what a child is doing. The best thing you should ask them is, how are your friends? And how many friends do you have? How many of them are coming to see you over the holidays? Unataka wanakutembelea holiday, unafanya nini na marafiki zenu wakati mnaenda showground? And things like those, because character is more important than a report card. Character is more important. Actually, report card should be the last thing you ask your child. It is very important. It is so important. But let me tell you this. If you get an A student who doesn't have character, you have given them, you have someone who doesn't have a soul. You have a beautiful thing that has no soul. You have a beautiful thing and you have to find business in your life. The second one is career. Career, collaborate. Because in this 2026, I am sure there are some dynamics of the family that are not applying anymore. Because those days they applied when Mama stayed at home, man was working. Mama did not have a salary, I had to say because I have to. And ways to bring up our children. I think one of the most practical ways that I have found is make sure these kids are involved in something. Get them to skating clubs, get them to a football academy, get them to go play chess when they are not school and those kind of things. That is one. Number two, get them involved in a charity kind of thing. Remember the example I was giving where someone took a kid to go and beg for in a children's home. Get them involved in those kind of things. And then, of course, look for what they love and make something out of it. I don't know if you've seen, but I've seen parents whose kids are very good with the art, and then make the art what you have in the house. Don't go buy art when your kids are doing art. And when a child comes home and finds the art they do, however not very artistic it's looking, is what is hanging on the wall, trust me, you have boosted their confidence. So it's a lot of things. Another thing I've seen people do is like the t-shirt you're wearing, just picking one of your arts for the kids, taking to those designers and put their art on your t-shirt, for example. And that way. Then the last one is, there is gaming that he was talking about. Make sure they play more board games than digital games. because most of the digital games can also be played on a table. So make sure if kids are playing, there is very little of this kind of games on our screens, and more of the games where they can play with two people. We call them cooperation games, because when you play cooperation games, wanaweza kukosana, then wanajirekebisha, anashindwa, anajua kushinda na kushindwa, because when you are playing on the screen, even if you lose, there is no emotion to it, because nobody even knows you lost. But if I'm playing with you and I lose, then there is something I'm losing because you know I'm lost. And therefore those kind of games become very important. And of course, and lastly, please encourage kids to read. There are a lot of nice kids books out here. Encourage them to read a lot. Kulikuwa na mtu alikuwa amenunua mkono pale. Have I answered your question? Pale kulikuwa na mkono sana. Have I answered your question? So. Kuna mtu alikuwa amenunua mkono pale.
I'd like to talk about the man.
Yes.
In the Christian perspective.
Yes.
The Bible says in the book of Titus, chapter 2. Titus chapter 2, verse 1 says, but you speak about the things which become sound doctrine. The foundation of the Christian faith, Jesus Christ, and He's crucified in 1 Corinthians 2 and 2. Then he says that the aged man be sober, grave tempered, sound in faith and charity, love and patience, in every point of Christian exceeding by far the so-called high standards of pagan world.
Thank you very much. That's a powerful one. Thank you.
Okay, I think that would be the last one. Understand lazima tutaendelea na kisomo na watoto watakuja kutujoin. So thank you for the time shared. Dr. Murusi and another psychologist who's with the teenagers right now, Dr. Steve Kimani. They will come and join us later. So allow us to end this session here with that as the last one. As the last question, atarudi kwa the pre-teens tuendelee kuongea so that as we have the joint session, they have had feedback from the parents and from the children. Asanteni.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take much of your time, Mr. Facilitator, but I agree with you so many things that you've said. But I've just got one question to ask you. One of the big problems we have is that most of us parents, we are naive. Many a times, Christianity is to swim more, need to talk. And many a times we don't have to change. Like for example, when I was young, I was not that they are doing the America. Now, they down when I keep you know, with the but when my elder brothers grew up, that's all come to don't you think that we as parents need to change? Don't you also think that we are ignorant? Don't you think that we as leaders in the respective groups that we also need to change as well? Like for example, can you know a video at the we have changed. We have come out of that. Today, go to some leaders, tell them that our Canada is kitchen because they are naive and they don't buy your idea. They shouldn't go away from you. They don't buy your idea. That's one of the biggest problems we have as parents. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I totally agree that what I was saying, that children may not listen to us, but they never fail to copy our example. It's interesting you say that because in less than that second, in some of these developed world, for example, Germany, there is a law that people actually respect green lights and red lights, totally 101%. But once in a while you find yourself in a place where it is on a Sunday, there is no one coming so you can actually cross. But there is only one rule that was said. It was said, you do not do that when there is a child in the vicinity. You cannot do that when a child is watching. And I like about the cigarette, you spoke in Kibuli, but I think I got it that there is a time you could not be sent a cigarette and you never saw them smoke. And that is exactly what I was saying, that in this idea of architecturing, the way they think and the way they do, we need to be able to, the same thing, I've seen parents take their kids to the park, juice. You are not doing much because this environment the child will aspire. So thank you for raising that up. I guess the greatest way to teach our children is by a good example. Thank you very much. Mahali tumefika na zile vitu ambazo kwa sababu mimi nikiongea na wao, nikiongea na nyinyi na nikiongea na wao, alikuwa pia anajaribu kutafuta maswala ambayo yanaibuka kwenye hii generation kwa sababu mambo kama nini naona kama wewe shosho na kama nini Umeona shosho? Alafu kuna mtoto mwingine nimeona hapa. Kuja kidogo hapa. Unaona hizi generation mingi zimepita hapa mbele. Unaona generation na sasa uko fiti. Unaona generation hizo mingi. A lot of things ama mambo mengi yanabadilika kutoka kwa shosh pale mpaka kwa ule mtoto. Lakini sasa shida inakuwa vile mimi nililelewa ndio nataka kulelea wale wangu. Wale wao vile labda wanataka kulelea wale wao. Kwa hivyo conversation ya this afternoon ni kujiuliza how do we bridge this gap between shosh between shosh na gathoni so that we are able to kind of go on a smooth transition so that we are able to adapt and become that which we need to become so that they can also become what they need to become. And that conversation becomes very important. Na niko na rafiki yangu hapa Kim atajiintroduce and then we will pick it from there. Kim.
Bwana asifiwe. Amen. Bwana asifiwe tena. Amen. Yes, mimi naitwa Steve Kimani. Tunafanya kazi pamoja na Steve Kutusi. Tulikuwa na vijana wetu huko na tukaongea mambo mengi sana na natumai tutaweza kuendelea na mazungumzo haya. Nashukuru.
Please pick a microphone and sit within someone there. And then I will be calling on you. So, kulingana na yale mambo yote tumeongelelea, I wish to state a few things that we have observed. And if we are able to collect these things, na yale mambo ambayo pia tumesema hapa na watu wengi ambao walikuwa wanauliza maswali na kupeana maoni yao, ni kwamba there are three things. One, we need to appreciate the fact that we need to remove the masks that sometimes we wear so that we can be a bit real and authentic na tukubali on the surface level that things have changed. Niliwaambia mimi simu yangu ya kwanza na ilikuwa smartphone nilipata nikiwa 21 years. Nilikuwa naitwa Sange. Nilikuwa na masikio pamoja kama rabbit kama iko na masikio moja. I was 21. Gathoni might be using her phone at her age. And so there is no way I am going to be like Gathoni because mimi natumia hizi vitu kwa muda sasa wa miaka 10 plus yeye anatumia amejua tu maisha ambayo iko na smartphone. And therefore these two generations are different. Number two, expectations za generation hizo mbili zilikuwa tofauti sana. Now one of the things we'll be discussing which has been raised is that generational what do I call it? Generational friction because of the fact there is no generational friction. These people think we should do this, and this one thinks we should do this, and we think we can do this. Of course, under CC, when we are being raised up, there are things we thought our parents did not know very well. But I want to state here now that our sons and daughters are also here, that trust me, it does not matter how old they are, they have a wealth of experience that should be able to borrow from. They have a wealth of experience that they can always see you fail before you fail. I remember one of our principals in school used to tell us that he has so much experience, he can look at a bird, anaweza angalia ndege akajua hii inaenda kutaka mayai before it lands. And so the experience we have with our parents here, you should be able to lean on it, you should be able to borrow from it, and don't dismiss it. It may not be packaged the way you want, but you cannot dismiss it. That is one. So we need to get to a point as generations, wale wadogo na wale wakubwa, tutoe hizi masks tunafaa, and we just look at the reality of things, that things have changed. The question becomes, how do we adapt? How do we adapt? How do we match up with them, and how do they match up with us? Some of just that we are able to learn and continue the question of relationships. The question of how are we building relationships where they want to say and they know they are not being judged. Kwamba anaweza kuja tu akwambie na we listen but we don't judge. The daughter can go out there, experience something not so good, and she knows how to come home and talk to you. It is one of those things. Kim will be speaking later, but one of the things I admire about Kim is that Kim speaks with his father every single day. His father is somewhere in Nyahururu or something. Molo. Kim lives in Nairobi. Every single day that brother calls his dad, if he doesn't call, the dad calls him. If he has a success he wants to share with someone, he calls his father. If he has a failure or some struggle he's having, he calls his father. How do we build that kind of relationship? How do we build in a way that we know we can show, our children can show up and talk? How have you built a relationship with your father in a way to show a genuine conversation? If you do this,
ni babangu alitengeneza hiyo space, create space that I could go and do so many mistakes, but I could come back. And it's not that I entertained kila kitu. I still got punished, I still got directed. Lakini hakuna siku nilifeel venye umesema judged. I made so many stupid decisions. So many. As any teenager would do. You know my story much better. All the errors I did in high school. But as much as there were consequences, bado nilikuwa allowed to be a teenager, to be a kid. And so I learned that there is nowhere else in the world I would rather run to apart from home. But the error that happens is the parents want to be so right that they don't allow any error, and now when the kids make a mistake, hawawezi kimbia nyumbani, wanataka kukimbia mahali pengine, because wakikimbia nyumbani there is no peace. So even in my adulthood right now, if I make an error, if I face something difficult, I learned the place to run to is back home. And so I would just call my mom and my dad. Maybe even right now they don't have a solution, because maybe the things I'm dealing with are not things they have influence over. But the fact that they would listen, I think that space is what is needed.
Thank you very much. So, number one, let us build a relationship where children can comfortably come back home and talk to us. Warudi tu nyumbani watuongelesha. Watuambie hii na hii na hii imefanyika, lakini bado wewe ni mwanangu. Nimwambia juzi about these people who will just go to committee, visit their son or daughter if there is a committee for women. And yeah, because it's your son, regardless of what they did. And therefore, one of the ways in which you can build these relationships is to ensure that the home environment is good enough for conversations, and sometimes very hard conversations. Number two is also to understand that those ones are children. Kim is almost in his 30s, but he's still his father's child. So the ones in Form 4 here, the ones who are just done university, the ones who are in their early career time, the ones who are in primary school, rather grades, junior secondary school, they are still children. And therefore, the way we approach it then becomes important, because my professor tells me that you can say anything you want want to say, the only challenge is how you say it. And sometimes the how we say it determines whether they are coming home or they are not. The names we use to describe them determines whether they are coming home or they are not. And therefore, we need to agree and just be real and decide, okay, there is a generational difference here. And then invite people to a conversation of, hey, what do we do here? How do we build a relationship that allows you to say and to speak without fear that you'll be judged? And then the last thing I'll talk about is, what are we doing like one of to be able to train ourselves, because we have about Gen Zs, but the kinds of Gen Zs. Gen Zs and remove ourselves because they are exactly in a way our reflection of the things we allow, do not allow, or the things we capture or not capture. Of course, we cannot take sometimes. If someone has to take responsibility for themselves, but there is no way of talking about a generation without talking about the people who raised that generation. Hakuna vile utaongelea kizazi fulani bila kuongelea wazazi wa hiyo kizazi. Because on the one side, we also, it's interesting now. I was having a program with some high school teachers, and the conversation was about children and mobile phones. Hii conversation ikiendelea, tukiendelea mambo ya high schoolers na mobile phones vile zimewaharibu, most of the teachers were on their phones at that time. So the conversation came back to, okay, wachana na watoto, na nyinyi mko aje? Then one of the times tulifanya observation ya walimu, unaenda kwa mwalimu, unakuta mwalimu anacheka kwa dirisha akiangalia nje, watoto wakifanya exam. Because ako TikTok, ako Instagram, and I watch some YouTube, something. So it's not even so much about a generation as well. It's also that smartphones don't get smarter than we are. We should decide when are we going to just come to us. We are so concentration. If you invite me for a cup of tea at your place, just imagine I'm going to find research. But I've been to some parents' homes where a parent mtoto anakuja kumuuliza kitu lakini akatoa anasema ni wacha kunisumbua. If you're with the children, let them see you practice the discipline of not using a phone when you don't need to use it, for example. Let them know that you also keep your phone down. Otherwise, where are they learning that from? It's very likely also from us. But then, on that juncture of training, which is the last one, that we need to train them by example, what we said earlier, that the best way to train a child is by being an example. How you use your mobile phone where you're what are you using it for? Are you also on TikTok and do they follow you or you follow them or something like that? Things like those. But there are three things very important that I say, that when it comes to this last part of training, there are three things we must train as parents that have been done with this conversation. Number one, we must train their minds. Lazima tukuze akili zao. Na vile tunakuza akili zao ni vile tunawasomea. Kama ni Biblia kama vitabu zingine, we have to build their minds like we said in the morning. We are the actors. Number two, we have to train their bodies. Usiwache mtoto amekaa nyumbani a whole week and another week amekaa tu hapo. I know sometimes our living conditions inaweza kuwa hatuna shamba kama all the teams. Let them do something active. Someone once said that depression hates a moving target. And therefore, when we keep moving, when we keep exercising our bodies, when we keep our bodies moving and train them to do hard things. A friend of mine told me he bought a piece of land he did not need because alikuwa anataka kufunga shule watu wakalime bila kuwa na shamba mahali walikuwa na. Get them something to do. Isikuwe the heaviest thing they have ever lifted is a mobile phone. Ajile kitu mzito kabisa mtu ashabeba ni bagi ya shule. Take them somewhere. Let them help other people wash clothes or something. When you have a washing machine, just let them do something. And the last thing you must train them is the spirit. You train their mind, you train their body, and you train their spirit, which is what our leadership here does at their best, please make sure that they understand that when they get to the end of the rope, there is always hope. And that hope is something higher than them. And that is God. Let them understand that of course, not only social media iko na watu wengi sana wanafunza vitu mingi. Kuna watu wanafunza mambo ya spiritualities, what, all those kind of things. Mambo ya Buddhism, zamani kwa naisikia tu nowadays you can just learn how to do yoga and meditation and you go to a higher state. Those kind of things are there. But let us make sure that our children are being trained in the ways of God, those which have brought us here, in a way that is good and in a way that is acceptable. And I only say those things, and I will invite him to have the next conversations from there. And the first one I'll ask him is, while I check how many minutes we have, is the generational gap of the Gen Z and the rest, and then we pick it from there. Just explain that part of Gen Z and what we have been complaining about, because I know you've been in those places, and he is the first generation Gen Z.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bwana asifiwe tena. Nimekuwa nikienda si ufanya trainings mingi hivi. Na zingine si tunafanya kwa makampuni na wafunza vitu tofauti. Na kwa kila kampuni ninaingia, hata kama sifunzi kitu ya Gen Z, ni ikifika masaa ya swali, kuna mtu mwenye ni manager ataniuliza, na tuko na hawa Gen Z wanatufanyia kazi. Anaweza complain list nzima ya vitu Gen Z wanafanya. I hope tunafeel bora kwenye mnafanya kazi, si ndio? Na ukiongea na Gen Z on the other side, pia nao wako na list yao, si ndio? So kuna vitu mingi inafanyika kati ya generation that are above the Gen Z na the Gen Z. Now, Mvusi ameongelea pande ya wazazi. Mimi kama Gen Z ningependa niongelee Gen Z. Mtanisikiza? Mtanisikiza? Bwana asifiwe. Kama mtanisikiza piga kwa kimoja. Thank you very much. Nikidhani hawa watoto wenu ambao ni sisi tumeingia dunia moja ambayo ni dunia ngumu sana. Wale ambao walisoma in the 90s, wanaenda shule in the university in the 90s, ukimaliza shule ulikuwa unamaliza kama umepata kazi. Si ni kweli? Kuna wale ambao waliishi ile wakati hata ulikuwa unatumia barua ukiwa wapi? Ukiwa shule, si ndio? Wakati wenu ungeambiwa usome na bidii, ilikuwa inaonekana, si ndio? Kwa sababu wenye wamesoma na bidii kwa hiyo kijiji ndio wako na kazi. Ikakuja hizo kazi zikaacha kuwa mingi, but kazi hazikupotea sana. Nyinyi wakati mlianza kutulea mlikuwa na kazi, lakini sisi tukikua tuliona hizo kazi zenu hazikuwa enough, kwa sababu bado hata nyinyi mlikuwa na financial struggle, si ndio? Si mimi babangu alichukua loan kunipeleka shule, and I know it's an experience, you know. So I'm looking at my father mwenye anafanya kazi na bado ana struggle. Sasa alafu mimi na mimi nimeambiwa nifanye the same thing yenye babangu alifanya. Unanielewa? Alafu nikasoma na nikatia bidii, nikasikiza na nikasoma, nikamaliza shule. Guess what happened? Nikatoka nje, mimi hata sikupata hiyo kazi. Wacha ile babangu alikuwa na struggle nayo, mimi sina. Na wale ambao kama mimi nilifanya mimi, si ndio? Nilienda shule nikafanya mimi. Wacha nikwambie leo, wale watu wote wenye unasikiza kwa redio, hakuna mtu alifanya media. Ni wachache sana. Si ni kweli? Wale ambao wanafanya morning breakfast ni comedians. Si kweli ama si kweli? Si ni kweli? Sasa mimi nimemaliza shule, nafaa Citizen wanaandike kazi kwa hiyo ndo kazi nimesomea. Wanaandika Profesa Hamo. niambie working hard pays. Do you think I understand what you're saying? Will I understand what you're saying? At the same time, nikienda mtandaoni kwa sasa tuko na mtandao, na mtandao inaharibu kila kitu. I can see someone who is younger than me, less educated than me, driving a car better than my father's. Unanielewa? Ni mdogo kuniliko, hajasoma venye mimi nimesoma, anaendesha gari nzuri kuliko babangu. Na hiyo ndio swali tunafaa mjiulize, kwa sababu mnalea watoto. Hizo values mnasema utamfunza respect, utamfunza resilience, utamfunza working hard. In your time, it made sense because you could see the reward. You could input something and see the reward at the end. Today, they will do everything you have told them, and there is no reward on the other side. I was telling Steve today, a young brother of mine, alienda Kimani, akafanya industrial chemistry. Wangapi hapo wangetaka watoa fanye kwa sky? Industrial chemistry, daktari, lawyer, let me see by show of hands. Yo, you don't want your kids to be these things? Content creators, content creators. Yeah? It's a respectable cause. Then he came out, he did a few internships here and there, but didn't land a job yet. And you wouldn't say he's a lazy guy. He's a good performer. Now he has had to go back to school to study data analytics. For the last 6 months, that young man hatokagi kwa nyumba. Sasa ako na internship ya data analytics. So he wakes up in the morning, 8 to 5, ako job. 7:30 to 10, ako class ya data analytics. 10 to 1 a.m., he is doing group discussions because ya hii class yenye wamefanya. So niambie, how many of you parents are waking up at 8 and sleeping at 1? Show of hands. That is the future we are dealing with. That is the future you're preparing your kids for. And Matthew, as much as he's doing all of this, there is no promised job. He's not going to get a permanent and pensionable job anywhere. Unanipata? So, mkitreat hawa watoto, sometimes you might tend to be too harsh. But the reason I'm telling you this is I want, there is a word Steve uses, anasema empathy. Tunajua empathy ni nini? Empathy. Hiyo capability ya kujiweka kwa viatu zao na kuelewa what is it that they are dealing with. For our parents, when you were growing up, for our parents when we were growing up, some of these things, and allow me to just say one of the extreme ones so that I make the example very clear. Some of you, sex was a taboo topic. The only time you could contend about it, not even think about doing it, start like having those thoughts, you are almost in your 20s. Trust you me, they're having to contend with that issue when they are 5, 6. Because wewe ndio ulinunua hiyo gadget na ukampea. Si wewe ulimpea? Ndio wanyamaze. Ndio jioni watu wasisumbuliwe. Ukamfunza Cocomelon, ukamfunza nini, akagrow up, akajua kutoka hapo, akajua kuingia YouTube yeye mwenyewe, akajua kuingia TikTok yeye mwenyewe. Now your kid is starting to contend whether sex is a good thing or a bad thing at 8 years old. You cannot raise them the same way. This is a very different world. So, not to make the story too long, my call to you as our parents, as the parents of these kids, is you have to do much more than you think is good. The only way you solve these problems is by time paying attention. You cannot be a passive parent. You cannot be an absent parent. You have to be there. You have to invest time. And you cannot push them away. Because the moment you do, there is a world out here waiting to educate them on all manner of things up until 2 in the morning. People are preparing ideas. Your TikTok. Ideas every day. Up until 2 in the morning. Wala umeongea 5 minutes. Ingia kwa nyumba, kwa shule ilikuwa aje? Umechoka, ni nini? Ukaenda unalala. The other 6-8 hours. Hapana strangers huko. I want you to visualize that. Hapo huko kwa street anaongea na random people, random strangers for 8 hours. And all you can do is speak to them for 10 minutes. You won't have that kid is not yours. Anaishi tu kwako. They are not yours.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate you. And so I will ask him to, oh yeah, perfect, yes. So, no, go ahead.
Umejua ni Gen Z juu ya venye aliongea, sio? You can tell the difference. So we can see the changing world, correct? We can see the changes, we can see the dynamic. Now, I want us to give a 10-minute Q&A because we had intended to share a supper in 12:53. So a few minutes Q&A, it can be from any generation on something you have learned, something you want to maybe get guidance on, uzuri wa kukuwa na experts miaka tofauti. Even as a topic, the way of thinking is different, so it's allowed to have a different way. I'll encourage questions that we can take, and then they will answer, wakijibu, and to create a learning opportunity for all of us. So some hands up please for questions, and then we will close the session. Kuna swali nimeona moja, Mama Viona. Another hand. It could be from someone in Sunday school. That's why they're also here, because they also had their session. Or someone in teams. We had the opportunity to have the speaker. Thanks, Mama Viona.
Okay, I wanted to ask. I think you should guide us on how to train our kids on coping mechanism. Because most of the time, when you are contracts, ni kitu iliwahapenia, wakashindwa kuongea, so they wakaenda the other side. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have another? So we can take 4 or 5. Not a first one. Babu.
My question is, how do we correct the younger generation without them taking words out of context and taking offense to what we want them to hear? Like, why are they always so defensive when we correct them?
Thank you, Abu. Good questions. Any other from a grandparent, maybe? I will catch or somewhere, but generation, we call crosstalk. So it would be nice to hear from my grandparents. Watoto wanakuja holiday, mambo ni mingi, unasikia story mingi. Any question from my grandparents?
Yes, thank you for the good talk. From my grandparents, we see like the children, Gen Z and the younger children, have a lot of entitlement. Like, where my parents, I'm entitled to this, and they are not giving room for that resilience and understanding. How do we cross that? How do we deal with the entitlement?
Asante sana. I can see some Sunday school children. Are you confident enough to talk today? Umetoka session yenu? Kama wameogopa walikuwa na Dr. Mutesi, so I'm sure wameongea. And we have one more question here.
My question is, since this is not the first time there's been a generational change, I would want to hear from a parent how they dealt with their grandparents, especially like the people who existed in a pre-colonial time, alafu sasa Kenya imekuja independence. How was it dealing then? Because the world feels similar. And my dad keeps saying there's nothing new under the sun. So
Alright. I don't want to lock anyone out. Do we have another before we can take all the questions? Any Sunday school teacher of Bahu ameongea? Do you have a tumesikia sauti ya mom? We have a mom, we have a dad. And then do you have another voice?
Yes, I want to agree with the presenters because there's something I did this week which I've never done. I got my grandchildren who are in a room, all of us, having a candid talk, which started with what they were going to become in life. I wanted to exclude the very young ones, but to my surprise, they also had a story to tell. And at the end of that session that lasted over an hour, we came up with some understanding because we narrowed it to character and performance. Because the two actually go hand in hand. If you see a child who has been doing very well in school, and now they are at a point of declining, it means there are some challenges they are going through. Education is a good barometer to tell what is happening in that child. And so we came to some understanding, and I was asking myself, where was I all these years that I couldn't create time? These children too have a story to tell. Let us create time for them.
So I will allow Dr. Mitusi and Sika to take the questions and Kim will and then we can have another session after we come up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those questions. I have them here. The first issue was coping. Kutoka kwa psychology kuna vitu vitatu ambavyo vikifanyikia mtoto ama familia inahitaji kuwa wanaweza kupatwa na mental health challenges kidogo. And I'm going to mention them. Najua kuna watoto mtatulia that thing. First thing is abuse. When there is abuse in the family, that is physical abuse, sexual abuse or emotional abuse, then hapo tunasema kuna kitu ambacho kinafaa kufanyika, watu wakuwe supported. Kitu cha pili ni physical abuse. I know some of us, already kusema, nyinyi labda mjui, lakini some of us have been punished by the kid, like wengine tulikufa na tukafufuka. We are here for the second coming of the Lord because we came back. But I think there is a sort of punishment that borders abuse. Right? There's a certain, that's why there was the issue of corporal punishment here or there, but I know you know what I'm talking about. People have been beaten to death for stealing 10 shillings. That is abuse. Then there is punishment. Then there is correction, which someone say. So there is abuse, which could be physical, emotional, or sexual. Then there is emotional abuse, which is neglect, and also not being there for the children. And then the third one, which I think sometimes you don't take very seriously, is family dysfunction. Family dysfunction inakuwa kama kulikuwa na mzazi akakufa mtoto akiwa bado mchanga. Then there is divorce and separation where the kid is used to the two parents and suddenly they only see one parent or something happens, and then there is co-parenting, which is becoming a very popular thing nowadays. And then when mzazi amekuwa incarcerated ama ameenda jela ama amekuwa na drug issue ama addicted kwa drugs. Vitu kama hizo zina destabilize the family. And so the question for coping, most of the time children are coping with those three things: physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. Or there is neglect, which is emotional neglect or physical neglect. Wakati wameachiliwa, then the third one is family dysfunction. When that happens, the best thing to do, and I know sometimes this is not usually the conversation, the best thing to do is to come to a place like this, talk to the man or woman of God, and just have a conversation, let that child be talked to and the parents also, so that wakati wanasema wakati faru wawili wanapigana nyasi ndio wanaumia, ile nyasi ndio ile imekaa pale nyuma wana light notes. And sometimes when there is disturb, our family is a bit disturbed, that is what happens. Number two, the good thing is those kind of things also build resilience for our children. See, zikifanyika ni lazima mtoto atapata experience baya. Some of the best kids have come from the worst setup in the family. So that is not to say because something happened, it happened. So the best way to teach them is get them to talk to someone, get them to therapy. Therapy is becoming very important. Like I said here, get them a life coach, get them a mentor, get them someone to talk to when they need to talk to someone, and that should be able to. And then of course, get them books, and also check what they are listening to. There is a lot of information online. It's only that the most important information online never trends, it never goes viral. Zile zinaenda viral hizi zingine, hizo tunazijua. Those ones, hizo zingine. So the other issue is correcting. I'm going to give Kim 1 minute to respond to the issue of how do we correct this generation in a way that is accommodating.
All right. If you allow me, I'll connect the correcting and the entitlement. I know you parents are going through your life, and also as parents you're figuring out your life. But because that is what life is, bring these kids into understanding that life. Because if you just create this facade of everything looks nice, when you ask for something it's provided, when this thing happens, when you create that, then you create the expectation that those things should always be there. So what you want to do is to bring them into it. And I'll give you the example with my dad. My dad used to sit us down and tell us, hi guys, this is what is happening. Your school fees is this much, yours is But if we will never have those conversations, I will be entitled. Because I don't understand. I'm a kid after all. What I'm thinking about ni thou, unakusaje thou. That's my thinking. That's my thinking. But if you have a good conversation with me, and those conversations happen at those times, your time in our for that 1 hour, that's when we talk. That's when we tell them your ambition as a parent. That's when we tell them you struggle with a parent. They are human beings. You're growing them up to do the things that you're doing. So don't exclude them. If you exclude them, they become entitled. And that's what's matters. Have those conversations with them. And so then correcting becomes easier because you have a relationship. If I did a mistake and my dad called me to correct me, I wouldn't think he wants bad things for me because we already have a relationship. But kama kila siku ukiingia kwa nyumba ni you have not done that, you have not done that, you failed me here, you didn't do that. I have to protect myself as a kid. And the way I do that, I put up a wall. Sindio? Na ukiingia kwa nyumba, mimi naenda bedroom. Sindio? Ama ukiingia kwa nyumba, mimi naingia TikTok. Sindio? Because every time you're just poking me. So relationship, my people. You should be the best relationship to your kid. That will solve the entitlement. It will solve the correction. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. I like that you mentioned that. Thank you. Yes, you can clap for it, please. I love that part because a friend of mine told me I realized that every time she was catching her daughter doing the wrong thing. Nowadays she's trying out of 5 bad things, catch her doing the right thing and praise her for that. That is one. Number 2, you don't have to use them. You see the way you guys preach here. I'm not trying to say anything, but you know there are other places where preaching is not like this. People stand on chairs, they jump up there, then they lunch down here and all of you are falling. Don't make correcting look like that. But because someone amekuja class, neighbor lazima ajue kuna wao ilikuwa kwa nyuma. Sawa. So the way the preacher was speaking here, just calmly and telling someone this, you did this. Trust me, I could be wrong on this one, but I usually say in my house, I usually tell my wife that if you cannot talk your 14-year-old, and if I cannot talk my 14-year-old into something, then I won't use stick. A stick will not help. At 14 years, 13 years, if you can't have a conversation and correct her behavior through a conversation, then probably the stick may not help a lot. The other thing was generational shifts and how nothing really changes. It's very true. I looked at a photo of my sister. Our firstborn sister is retired now in her late 60s, 70s. And one of our photos as a young girl had a mini skirt, like a serious mini skirt. A serious one. So that was in the 60s, 70s. So I hope the minis are not coming back, but if they do, then there's nothing new on the side. And she's a retired pastor as we speak. So yes, generation cap, but yes, he had asked if we can hear from one of us. Nani anaweza kutueleza vile vitu zilibadilika generation after generation. Mimi nimevaa thank you very much. Mimi nimevaa zile nguo ilikuwa kama ingekuwa hii nimevaa sasa ingekuwa choza 3.
Hello everybody. Come floor. Generation gap. You guys, hindi tutitikikadira mudeha. Utigeke ni mwikanya na maadi mukaya wewe wakati kana wewe wadani yokina. Adona makadisa pia. Nebo kana wewe my generation. Right now, we are very lenient. And it will take us so much. Na tutuite, tuhete shena tablets, shira madomithia. That's the first mistake we did. Kumahe tablets, that's the first mistake we did as parents. So the TV, the tablet, you're not even there. You're an upset mom or you're an upset dad. To correct this, there's a time limit. Tablet, whatever. So, but now, TV, tablet, Vimo, as parents, let's have our time share. No. Wala no matuare park, mwikare now, mwadia now. Mumenye uyo dawe kaki, na dukama push. Then parents, ili tuera where would we cut it? They go to cut it. And it's nothing we could have done. Gen Z that oh no mom, get we call. So let's give our kids and support them. Let's support our kids. Whatever you want to do, let's give that time, and we'll do the best that we can. You don't push your generation, you don't push your push. You do this, you do that, but as parents, let's bridge that gap. That's what I'll say.
Let's appreciate others. What I will say about that is the fact that each generation had their own way of bringing up the young ones. And I think one of the admirable things across generations past, including mine, is the ability to be working together, whether it is in the farm, whether it is going for activities together, going to church together as a community. That works. And therefore, the things we can borrow from those is the idea that we can all bring ourselves together, and comes down to what Grandpa was saying, that he calls his kids for an hour and have a conversation. These kids have very interesting stories to tell. But are you, in any way, are you easy enough to be told? Or, as long as I'm holding a phone like this, and my daughter is telling me something, subconsciously she'll think, maybe there's something that wants to do. And what is more important on this phone than to speak to my child? I say this because of time. Let us not imagine that those children are with us forever. Up to 19 years, you will have spent half of that child's life with you. Up to 19 years. By the time your child is 19 years, you're going to spend 50% of the time you're going to spend with them. Work happens, marriage happens, and everything is. That's number one. Number two, for the parents, if, God forbid, if that child was to be leaving the house one day in the morning going to school, and you knew it was the last day you're going to see them, because things happen, what conversation are you going to have with them? Because sometimes we treat people like they are going to be here. Like I've been with Kim, so today we're going to Kim, so nitakuwa naye kesho. And for the children, some of us have phones written Maito, and we can't make a call. Don't also treat them like they're just here. You should be able to look at your parents, and parents should be able to look at their children and know that being present enough, just being there, put everything down, and just let them know how much you value them, how much you validate them, and how much they mean to you. Because one day, one of you is going to walk out of that door, and they're not coming back walking. God bless.
Asante sana. We thank God for the live stream. Kuwajina shule kila tukuma the live stream. So one, what is the best way to deal with teenager anxiety or emotions without being overwhelmed as a parent? And how can one best guide them to control their emotions for boys and girls? I know this one is specific for girls, but gender. Dr. Mudusi, you have said that parents need to be influencers. In a world that is evolving every day, how do you control the information they get online? Because you can't keep them away from the gadgets. Some have projects and research. And I think even if you look at the controls, I don't know how TV, there's an age limit for the family link. Some it's for accounts below 12. We're talking about how some countries have their accounts. The children need these gadgets to work. So what controls can we put in place for social media and for their projects? The third question is to do with taboo topics. How do we introduce taboo topics? I think it's been talked about here, so I have a question on taboo topics. How do we talk about taboo topics with our children?
So I will start with the anxiety now. I think anxiety is something that children develop over time, depending on how they are treated in the family space. For example, here, Grandpa talked about character, then talked about performance, and then talked about challenges. The moment the expectation versus what I am experiencing is different, then I'm going to be a bit anxious, and I'm not going to show up fully the way I should. And therefore, when you are putting expectations on your children, don't make the expectation of the grades look like that is it. When the child is good, they relate to people very well. When visitors come, they greet them nicely. They are able to serve your visitors well, and they talk kindly. But then the A-grade one is the one who does not talk to anyone, uses bad language in defense of themselves, and therefore for the anxiety part, let us make sure that we are not putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves and also on them, and even them putting unnecessary pressure on themselves, because grades never determine anybody's success rate, especially in this age Kim was talking about. That is one. Number two, there is also the part where anxiety becomes a medical or rather psychological health condition. And that is where I say it is always good if you realize that a child has some level of anxiety Talk to a doctor, talk to a therapist, talk to a psychiatrist, talk to a psychologist, talk to a counselor. And some of these things are able to be resolved, or rather, resolved before they become too clinical to be handled. That's, I would say that. The next question was, after anxiety, was social media. I think I had mentioned that in the morning, that it is your kids cannot afford gadgets. So if your kid has a gadget, you have afforded one, and you have given to them, that is one. Number two, they are doing assignments, yes. But Kim here is a tech-savvy guy, and will tell you that you are able to put certain things in your gadgets to restrict what kind of age-appropriate information kids can access. So there are some parental controls you can have on the one side. But number two, which has worked for me, where my kids work from, they don't work in their bedrooms with their gadgets. And the study room, if you're using a computer, the computer in the house is facing where people are passing. They're not on their own in a family, let me use that one. See, that guy has a computer, I don't know what he's doing there and everything. So if you're doing an assignment, there is the desk, and when you're doing an assignment, anyone passing around just sees what you're doing. So if you're doing assignments where they're hiding in the bedroom and some other quarters, let assignments be done where assignments can be done. If I'm working on the side, or the mother is working, or their sisters are working on the side, then that becomes important. Number two, let there not be personalized gadgets. Let the gadget be a family gadget, like if it's a tablet, everybody uses it. Of course, I know they know how to delete history and all those other things. You can monitor those things and know what is happening. I think it's very easy if you are intentional and very present. But importantly, I would not buy a child a personal gadget, which even uses. Even myself, I don't, and I'm not saying this to say anything, I'm just saying me. I don't get into my bedroom room with my phone. There's a place before my bedroom where every gadget is left. Why is a child going to bed using it? I mean, a friend of mine from Canada was here and he laughed because a friend of his, everybody picked their gadgets. Then he laughed even more when they picked them when they're going to the toilet. Thank you. The other one.
Very true. How do you address taboo topics? From where I finished, you remember I said relationship. If you cannot have this simple conversation, so if you can't say that, how are you going to tell them about everything else that you want to talk about? It's not going to happen, okay? So build those relationships. That is going to be your biggest solution. Let me just say one thing so that you will remember this. Build those relationships because they give you the leverage to build on to other things. The other thing is also, I'm the first one in my home, and I've told you the type of relationship I have with my dad. Now, if my younger siblings, which actually happened, they went on the internet and they went to places where they were not supposed to go to, my dad would come to me and tell me, I found this. Can you help me have that conversation? And since I relate well with my dad, I can talk to my brother. Senor. But coming your relationship is a built. Now my dad has to fight with me, then fight with my brother, fight with my sister, and now you're imagining what that whole household is looking like. The easiest way actually to build these relationships is with your firstborns. Make a good relationship with those people because they talk with their brothers. Me and my brothers, there is nothing we cannot talk about. So if my dad wants to have a conversation with all of them, with all of us, he can easily just talk to me and I can talk to everybody else. So those taboo topics can only be addressed if we have that. Ukizi outsource, then ukuinje, we have a lot of ideas and we will give all those ideas. So build those relationships, build that way. Even with the gadgets thing and the homework thing. Some of you are saying that these kids need that gadget to do homework because you don't want to sit with them and do the homework. You want to send them, I know when you prepare gadgets with ChatGPT. That's what you want to do so that they don't bother you to do the homework. Tumia kaa nao hapo. Wakikuja jioni, wasipotee kwa msao. If you carry work home, you yourself, and you're busy, Kuleni sasa nyinyi wote kaeni hapo kwa meza. You answer your emails, they do their homework. Spend as much time, and this time is not just about talking time, as Bukasi. Ni hata time tu ya kukaa kama muongei, but mnafanya activities together. Mnakumbuka mkienda shamba na mom na dad, amko mnaongea the entire time. But the moment mnafanya kazi hapo, kuna kitu moja itasema yenye utakumbuka. Na siku nyingine waseme kitu kingine. Na siku nyingine ukuwe na swali waulize. When your parents are guiding you on these taboo topics, very rarely hawakukukaisha chini wakwambie leo niende na roho, leo uboko wodi ya roho. Makoya na maodo mau mwefana mwalimu ngoda. Karamwasha maneno na ngoda wakakoya leo mwashi. Leo niende dogo. Na hiyo ndiko hauna wana ya kila maodo. Leo mwakikara ikara ni yana cia kumutiriana kila hamwe, mutiruta wera hamwe, o mundu ikara rumu yake ukamwirira ku. Ona hao basi kirumu mwe ni waje kuikara na kihau. Omwekera dakaigwa. Koguo solution yetu yote kuli mpotea. Goikara na ciana ici tondũ nĩguo wĩra witũ mũnene. Waritaya, wainũka, aya nĩo ũkenda mokae gũcera. Tiguo? No karagĩũka gũgũcerera nĩkĩ? Na tũtirĩ twaikarania na wambitire niĩ njikaraga rumu yakwa. Rĩrĩa ndaneneire ngĩthiĩ cukuru, ngĩgũra nyũmba yakwa. Rĩu ndĩragĩcoka gwaku gwĩka atĩa? Ndĩ gwaku ndaikaraga rumu yakwa. Nĩma? Thaa ici ndagũra nyũmba yakwa. Rĩu mũciĩ ngatagĩra kĩ? Gũtirĩ. Ikarai nao. Ona rĩrĩa mũtarĩ na kĩndũ gĩa gwĩka. Indo icio ciothe cithambio, handũ ha kũnegena rĩ, ndũkĩmwĩte mũikare hau sinki-inĩ, ũthambie akamũre. Tiguo? Nyũmba ĩyo ĩrenda ĩthambio ĩrĩ, oya kushoni icio cigũragũre harĩa na gakapeti gaka na niĩ ngorwo ngĩthambia. Nyitanĩrai ũguo. No ũrĩa Steve arauga, ũrenda gũikare TikTok? No mawatho. Matigagũthikĩrĩria. Thank you.
Session tumefunga, but the theme was we were talking about God's family in a changing world. And I believe we have been able to capture small aspects, but we are all God's family and we have seen the changing world, and we are praying we will be equipped. So I invite closing remarks from Dr. Mugusi. Then after that, nitauliza patron wa Christian Education, who is Elder Anne, to also give us a vote of thanks for this session.
Thank you very much to the administration of the church. We're very grateful. We're talking to Anne. I got also to know Elder Anne, and really a pleasure. Thank you for having us here. The only thing I'll say as a closing remark is for the parents, you are the greatest project we ever work on. Just make sure you work on yourself in a way that you become the best version of yourself. And the children there, our brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, you're also the greatest project you ever work on. Just keep working on yourself and become the best version of yourself possible. But for the parents and the big brothers and sisters and uncles and other caretakers here, please make those kids your greatest project. If you ever find yourself working on a project that does not have them in mind, then that project is too big even for you. Thank you very much. And God bless you. We'll see you again sometimes.
Tumesoma. Basi, hebu tuone na mikono kama it was worth it. Good. As the patron of Christian education and also the chair lady, I want to take this opportunity to say how grateful we are as a church because you found time. When you are invited, you agreed to come to a place you've never been, and you have enriched us. From the children, when we were told about this program, we didn't actually know how it would go. We were all not sure whether it will function, but we had faith. And it has been so good. We want to say how grateful we are, because every parent, they want the success of their children. And also the children, they want acceptance from the parent. So that is how the family can elevate and grow. So when there is a disconnect, there is always problems. And you have really impacted and enriched us, and we are very grateful. So I want to say that if we call you another time, please find time to come. Tumefurahi. It was worth the while.